It's now time for The Sit Down with Don Tony.
The Sit Down, where Don Tony talks one-on-one with his followers.
What are you looking at?
About the world of pro wrestling, pop culture, and so much more.
The Sit Down with Don Tony.
And now, your host, Don Tony.
How's everybody doing tonight? It is March 22nd, 2026. Welcome to the latest Sit Down with yours truly, Don Tony, the only Don of wrestling. And we don't change our gimmicks after a few years. You know, we continue doing our thing. You know, I was looking at some emails and messages the last couple of days, and I can't believe in about 2 weeks, a little more than 2 weeks, it's already 1 year that we lost Kev. Just unbelievable. In fact, I think what I'm going to try to do is get one of these little posters made up in the background, a little tribute to Kev as well. This way we could throw that up there. Hopefully I'll get it in time, you know, that we do reminisce a little bit when we hit a year. But it's crazy to think it's already been 1 year. It's crazy. But look, you know, I think a lot of us who knew Kev and were very close with him, he would want us to go forward, you know, business as usual, laugh, smile, be happy. You know, of course we mourn, but we never forget. And full steam ahead, full steam ahead. And speaking of full steam ahead, for a lot of you that may have forgotten or may not realize it, starting tomorrow night, we should have no technical issues, but I am going to be returning to YouTube live every Monday night, right after Raw. And, you know, we've been doing it on Discord for years now. But the fact of the matter is I've been receiving way too many requests from a lot of you out there that on Monday nights you like to hang on YouTube. There's a lot of people doing shows and a lot of you channel surf. And I tell you, I go back to the Monday Night Wars. In the 90s, you know, I used to flip back and forth, USA Network, TNT, USA Network, TNT. And, you know, a lot of you find it a little bit inconvenient to have to load not only YouTube, but also load a Discord app, especially that a lot of you tune in on your phones. And I get that. And I do realize now that, especially with a phone, see, I navigate on my computer. I watch YouTube videos. It's either on my Roku or my computer. Very, 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 very rare that I ever watch YouTube stuff through my phone. So the fact that almost 45% of you tune into the shows from your phone, I can see how it could be very inconvenient to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So starting tomorrow night, you know, we're going to recap Raw. Will this happen tomorrow? Will this age well? I think it's happening, guys. I think the reason why these masked men around Seth Rollins are sticking around way too long, you know, they're kind of goofy when you think about it. They're not friends of his. There's no trying to play whack-a-mole. Seth Rollins ain't wearing a mask. We're not playing whack-a-mole anymore. Why are these masked men still around Seth Rollins? I think Bron Breakker is going to return. I think we're going to find out that his injury was nowhere near the severity that was originally reported, which happens a lot in wrestling. And I think what's going to happen is he is going to be revealed as one of the masked men. He's going to be standing in the ring with Seth Rollins. He's going to pull the mask off, and he's going to whack Seth Rollins. Not sure if it'll be a chair, but I think that's where we're going with this. You know, I think we are going to lead to Bron Breakker versus Seth Rollins. And by the way, if my neck looks red, it's because I had a little bit of itch after I shaved earlier today. So my apologies. You know, that's one of the downfalls about doing video. You know, you have to see my ugly mug. But now, as far as our Discord family, before I go any further about Seth, and we'll talk Cody and get into a bunch of other things. As far as our Discord family goes, Discord, Patreon, that doesn't change. That'll never change. We're good. Tomorrow, I will leave the chat room open, but I think in order to access the audio of the shows, you're going to have to go on YouTube. I tried doing some tests to see if I can open Discord and YouTube at the same time on a computer, and it's not working well. I keep getting audio cut out, one or the other. And listen, you're talking hundreds of people on YouTube, sometimes thousands, and you're talking 30 on Discord. So, if anybody's inconvenienced tomorrow, my sincere apologies. I'm going to try to get a workaround, so for the few of you out there, but that doesn't mean that you can't hang in the chat, because I will have the chat open on my screen and I will be interacting with everybody tomorrow. We're going to be interacting a hell of a lot more than we've done in the past. So if you like going on Discord, absolutely. If you want to go on YouTube, absolutely. But it's time that we start expanding the shows a little bit. It's the only way we're going to survive. There was 2 decades that we were doing the shows for the love of it and absorbing all the expenses and, putting ourselves in a lot of credit card debt. Now these days, you got to fight to survive, just to try to break even at some point. And you see, what happens online. You see the cutthroat. You see a lot of the clickbait. And not only that, a lot of friends stabbing each other in the back because they just want that $1 extra. So it's time we start expanding. And that's what we're going to do. Now, that's not it. I mean, we're going to do more as the year goes by. But for now, we will bring back Monday nights on YouTube. And everything else still stays the same. So, all right. A couple other things. Just to finish up the Seth Rollins thing. And listen, when we get into a few news tidbits here, I will expand and elaborate on it a little bit more tomorrow. Because tomorrow, Monday night, if anybody tunes in on the archive too, it's not just a Raw review. We get into news. We get into discussion. We'll get into questions also. So Mondays are a lot more than just Raw. I don't want anybody to think that it's just a Raw recap show, because we do a hell of a lot more than that. But getting back to the Seth Rollins situation, the minute that we learned quickly that Oba was taking on Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, that pretty much left nobody for Seth Rollins to fight at Mania. The only scenario that I could come up with if he doesn't fight Bron Breakker is that Seth Rollins is not going to be ready for WrestleMania. And I believe he is. And I'll tell you the reason why. Why would you bring him back now? Why would you bring him back now? He attacked Paul Heyman. I'm a stickler to storylines. I get a little bit too technical. But the fact that Brock Lesnar allowed Seth Rollins to leave the ring on Monday night after Seth Rollins destroying Paul Heyman a couple of weeks earlier is storyline stupidity. Why would Brock Lesnar even give Seth Rollins a moment to breathe? The minute he gave him a pass, told me, okay, it's definitely not going to be Seth and Brock at WrestleMania. Later on last week on Raw, when you had Paul Heyman telling Logan Paul and Austin Theory that we're losing power, and the only way we regain power is with gold. I want you two to focus on the Usos. So now you realize Logan Paul and Austin Theory are not in the cards for Seth Rollins. There's no one else. What are you going to do? Debut another member of the Vision now with a month to go to WrestleMania? That's a little bit too late, in my honest opinion. And a lot of people think Maxine Dupree may end up joining the Vision after what we saw last week on Raw. That'll be a discussion for another day, but just by process of elimination, the only person that could face Seth Rollins now at WrestleMania is Bron Breakker. And I truly believe this is the only reason why they're keeping the masked men around. There's no other reason. There's no more who's under the mask. There's no more running into the stands. It is now Seth Rollins and a bunch of masked men that are like props. What's the purpose? They're not even attacking anybody. Logan Paul and Austin Theory now are going to focus on the Usos. Brock Lesnar is now inundated and preoccupied with Obafemi. So what's the purpose of having these guys in the ring now? So I think you have to have Bron Breakker be revealed. And listen, I did my best to try to make a realistic looking photo. I know Bron Breakker kind of looks more of like he's constipated and everything, but it's the best that I could do. Under my pay grade, it's the best that I could do. So let's see what happens. I think that's the most likely scenario going forward. Now, I did this one today, and I wasn't originally planning on doing this one today. I started thinking about it, and you know what? This is a good segue because I saw a Cody Fatigue super shout out earlier, and I would like to shout this gentleman out now because he brings up an excellent point. This is Dayhawk. What's up, Dayhawk? Dayhawk 666. He says the Cody fatigue is very real. WWE is trying so hard to make the audience boo Randy, but it hasn't worked. Would it be funny if Randy pulls a Braun Strowman, just like all of you, I hate Roman Reigns? I can't do a Randy Orton impersonation, but you remember that with Braun Strowman? That was ridiculous. I remember Kevin and I covering that right after Raw, and we were like, why did they do that? That was so forced, and it just made us angrier at Roman Reigns at the time. This is when Roman Reigns couldn't do no right. Braun Strowman was on such a roll at that time, and he was so badass, lifting the fucking trailers upside down and all this other stuff, and the fans started cheering him. And they literally intentionally did everything they could to shut the fans up. So they just tell Braun Strowman, listen, go out there tonight and just shit on the fans. Just like all of you, I hate Roman Reigns. And all the fans are like, where'd this come from? Because for weeks, Braun Strowman didn't say nothing about the crowd. So I think of this. Cowboy Bob Orton obviously is the one that Randy was on the phone for. I don't need no busted open show 48 hours later to say, oh, you know what? I was talking to Bob Orton. We realized that 5 minutes after we saw that pixelated video with Randy Orton on Raw Monday. And yeah, you're going to have the Rhodes and the Ortons. That's what it is. It's family feud. You're going to, just why Randy Orton said wrestling has more than one royal family. And it's true. I mean, there are more than one. The Anoa'i family, the Rhodes family, the Hart family, the Orton family, and I could go on and on and on. The Von Erich family. There are a lot of royal families. As we go decades on and we get older, there's going to be more royal families. You're going to see some sons and grandsons of some wrestlers that we've seen the last 20 years performing. I think somebody said Heenan family. CJ Rocks, yeah. Heenan family was awesome, man. Heenan family was awesome. Loved it. But I'll say this. Randy Orton has to do something outrageous. Outrageous for 2026 standards. And I don't mean to get extremely technical with wrestling spots for a moment, but if anybody, the timing is everything. And it's unbelievable some of the timing that you see when Randy Orton hits these RKOs. We've seen some legendary ones over the years. Shelton Benjamin, we've seen a few of them. Randy Orton is just awesome with that. But you also got to give credit for the person taking it. All right. Just think of when Steve Austin stunned Vince McMahon, not only the last time, because people are like, well, Vince was in his 70s. I get it. But what about the first time? Going back 25 years or whatever, even longer than that. 28 years. But the thing is, Randy Orton needs to do something outrageous where even for today's standards, that's a TV 14, maybe Fox would have put TVMA. You remember the night that Fox made an episode of SmackDown TV 14. It was always TV PG for 1 week only, I think. There was only 1 week. It was TV 14. Wasn't MA, but it was TV 14. A lot of people thought, oh, I remember that. Braun Strowman picked up Alexa Bliss, and he was going to body slam her, but he didn't. No, that wasn't it. It was Retribution. It was Retribution. Fox did not want an Antifa-like storyline on their television. So when Antifa, Retribution, showed up and did what they did on that episode of SmackDown, Fox was like, okay, no problem, TV 14. And then right after that, Retribution became Raw Superstars. We don't have to worry about Fox this time around. We got to worry about Netflix and USA Network. USA Network will allow, to an extent, blood, cursing, little over-the-top violence. Okay, usually only happens around WrestleMania time. Just think 2 years ago. God bless their souls. God bless those poor boys out there, mostly boys. You remember when The Rock made Cody Rhodes bleed? Mama Rhodes, remember that? The Attitude Era is back. TV 14, Netflix, Attitude Era. No, it's called the final weeks leading up to WrestleMania blood, the final weeks leading up to WrestleMania violence, the final weeks leading up to WrestleMania vulgar language. And then once WrestleMania came and went, there goes the blood, there goes the over-the-top violence, and there goes the TV 14 rating that a lot of people were committed. Remember, Attitude Era was back? It's amazing how many people were doing that. You got to do something on that level here. And I personally think, I know, very, very, very inappropriate for 2026 standards, but Jonathan Gresham just took on Mercedes Martinez and got pretty physical during that match. I think Brandi Rhodes, and again, I said earlier, I don't mean to get really technical about moves, but yeah, I think Brandi Rhodes could take a face bump and have Randy Orton RKO her. And, that just takes it to a whole different level. I'll tell you this much. Brandi Rhodes getting RKO'd by Randy Orton would be a hell of a lot better than when Randy Orton, because this week is the anniversary, guys. Do you remember? Remember when Randy Orton handcuffed Triple H and he kissed the Stephanie McMahon, an unconscious Stephanie McMahon? Oh, my God. One of the worst WrestleMania matches. High-profile WrestleMania matches. They thought at that time, you don't do that. You don't kiss somebody's wife. Yeah, say that to every rich billionaire out there. You got to do something like that. I think Cody Rhodes needs to have something happen now. You see, Cowboy Bob Orton getting involved is interesting. Because you don't have, with all due respect, you don't have Dusty on the other side. So Cowboy Bob Orton, if he does return, which I'm not even sure, but even if he does make a cameo, the only person on Cody's side that can make a cameo also is Brandi. You're not going to have Dustin, obviously. We don't need to see the nephews that are in the wrestling school. We don't care about them. The fans will chant one more time. Just like they chanted one more time when Randy Orton did what he did to Matt Cardona the other day. People are like, I can't believe the fans are chanting one more time. Yeah, because they know it's entertainment. You fucking put out WWE Unreal. We're going to watch in the summertime Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes or Matt Cardona in the back. Hey, you doing good? Hey, let's go out for a beer after. Blah, 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 blah. That's why the fans chant one more time. They want to see more violence. They know what it is. You think I care what happens to Jelly Roll now? He's going to fight Kit Wilson. You think I care if he gets crucified, if he gets nailed? No, because a couple of months we're going to see in the back, hey, good spot, good day. Or a week or two before, hey, you think I should get nailed to the wall? Get nailed to the wall, kind of like putting like a thumbtack inside a jelly donut. You spoiled a lot of this stuff. So how do you go over the top? You got to give us something that we feel WWE would never, ever even think about doing. So I think that's where we have to go with this. And let me also say this in closing. And thank you very much, Dayhawk, for that. I think that's one way. That's one way you could kind of add a little bit to the situation. Let me tell you something. If the fans will chant holy shit. If Randy RKO's Brandi, the fans will chant holy shit. Fans may even chant one more time. That is a perfect way to get Cody Rhodes heel in the future. My wife gets RKO'd, and you chant one more time, fuck you. You know, like, but the problem is, you're not going to have Cody Rhodes turn heel very quickly. You don't have Cody Rhodes wait a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years to finally let loose on the fans, kind of like what John Cena did. That's why the storyline really didn't work out as good as they thought it would. It was just felt like out of nowhere, you know? So I would do that. I would do that. RKO, it's a face bump. And listen, it's a very importantly timed face bump, but I would love to see it, man. I don't know about all of you, but I would love to see that. So we shall see. We shall see. Oh, one thing I was going to say earlier. In no way, shape, or form am I crapping on Kit Wilson taking on Jelly Roll. I understand Jelly Roll's place in this. He's a celebrity. It's kind of like leap year. You know, like it comes around once in a blue moon. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not a big deal. It's kind of like February 29th. That's what Jelly Roll is. Well, I can't call him fat. I'm probably fatter than him now. He's a February 29th. He's the February 29th of wrestling. He shows up once in a blue moon. You know, that's what it is. I could tolerate it. Just like you look at even some of the stuff with AEW. People are like, oh, what did you think about this? Whose line is it anyway? Or whatever that fucking guy was. I'm like, what do I care? Like, it's one night. Big deal. You know, Bing Boom AJ, you know, it's not that, you know, often. You know, I'm like I said, I know I sound really sinister for saying this, but I want to see these kids 10 years from now when there's a reality show and we see I can't like they're at the doctor's office and they're checking they're doing like he's testing for diabetes and everything like that. You know, seriously, you know, I'm telling you, they're going to do a reality show down the line, and then one of them is going to unfortunately get sick, and you're going to have, you know, somebody say, you know, maybe you shouldn't have ate all those chocolate chunk chip cookies. You know, I hope they don't get sick, but you see it. I mean, my God, I mean, it's like someone who smokes all the time. You're like, hey, you know, not for nothing, but you might get lung cancer from it. But you love the person, so it's like, let them puff up. And then you act all shocked when they get lung cancer. You know, this is not healthy. I don't care what this is, you know. I mean, that's not good. That's not healthy. But that's his gimmick now. His gimmick is to look like a Cabbage Patch Kid. Wait till he grows up, you know, and then you realize what's his worth. What is his worth? So enjoy it now. Enjoy it now. And you know what? Look at Goldberg's son. Remember Goldberg's son when he brought his son in the ring and his son went topless for some reason? And you look at it like, oh my God, I thought my tits looked bad. I mean, and he's a kid, but you saw him and he's like, wow, he's got like girl boobs. Look at that motherfucker now. That guy is jacked. So the Rizzler, that motherfucker may end up turning into like Brackus, for all we know. You remember Brackus? Brackus. What was that? Was that Beyond the Mat? No, that was Wrestling with Shadows. You remember when he sat down to eat dinner with the Hart family? He looked like so out of place. Like every member is like a Hart member, and then you see Brackus. If you didn't know anything about wrestling, you would have thought that he was like the gardener. They're like, we'll let the gardener sit at the table with us, you know, this week. But no, I don't think he has diabetes. I hope he doesn't have diabetes. I really mean that. So, but, you know, if you have a train wreck in front of your face and you just see someone getting heavier and heavier and it's a kid, you know, I'm not saying it's child abuse. I'm not going to get to that extent. But at some point you have to say to yourself, all right, you got to be careful now. You know, the gig is up. Puberty will do that. I think puberty will do that. And then when he realizes that, the only women that are interested in him, for him, is Marshmallow Woman and that other train wreck that was in the reality series. Anybody remember that woman's name? What was the woman's name? The young girl that was like 500 pounds. Remember her, and she turned out to be like a scam or whatever? I don't remember. I didn't watch those shows. But, all right. So I'm not crapping on Jelly Roll. Somehow we ended up with that. I'm not crapping on Jelly Roll. He's there for a little bit. He truly loves wrestling. He takes it seriously. It's WWE that reels in the actors or entertainers, I should say, non-wrestlers, to, just do just enough. And Kit Wilson will do his job. So I'm not concerned about that. So, all right. Before we continue more questions, I want to talk for a quick minute. Actually, I have an apology, and I want to talk about two other quick topics. First of all, let me just throw this out there. We're not going to get into all the details today. I'm still reading this to try to understand how this happened. And I'm not negative about it. Listen, if someone is proven to be innocent, you could think in your mind or in the court of public opinion, they're guilty. But, if you have half a brain and some type of sanity, you understand that, okay, we could crack jokes like everybody's got a price. That's not a Ted DiBiase impersonation, but everybody's got a price. No, I think in the case of Ted DiBiase Jr., we all thought, stick a fork in him, throw him on the rotisserie machine. He's done. That's it. He's over with. I literally opened on my phone the other day and I see Ted DiBiase Jr. not guilty on all counts. 7 years. 7 years of this shit. And not even 3 weeks of a trial. Not guilty. Not guilty. Unbelievable. When you realize that in that area of the country, the biggest scandal they've ever had, tens of millions of dollars, and somehow he's the only babe in the woods that didn't know what was going on. That's amazing. And listen, I accept the verdict, and listen, Ted DiBiase Jr. doesn't tune into these shows. Trust me, you don't tune into these shows. But if by chance they ever did, I sincerely apologize. I sincerely apologize for thinking that he was guilty beyond a shadow of a doubt. Because here's the thing. It's kind of like if you go to work and you work with 7 people and every single person is committing a crime and you just clock in and clock out and don't see any of it and don't take part in any of it. Not only that, and to also be looked at as a sucker, because this is what I've gotten so far about this case. Again, we'll get into it more tomorrow, but this is kind of the conclusion I've gotten so far. They had Ted DiBiase Jr. set up an app, and basically the app was designed for people to donate money, and they thought they were going to families in need, food course drives and this and that. In New York, we have the HEAP program. I actually help some of my elderly customers get it. It's a discount you get. HEAP stands for heat and electric. That's the HE part of it. And, when you get approved for a discount, a rebate for your Con Ed bill, that's the E part of it. You get approved for the EAP program. And for the heating program, I always get mad because I think of Sam Roberts and I want to punch myself in the nuts. It's the HAP program. And it's like, what's the HAPs? Because HAP stands for HAP, and that's what that fruitcake always used to say. What's the HAPs? What's the HAPs? So every time somebody's like, I got proof of the HAPs, I'm like, fuck you. So that's kind of the New York version of it. But the thing I always said to myself was, why did they ask Ted DiBiase Jr. to set up the app? Like, Why wouldn't you just pay a company to set up the app? Like, I didn't even know Ted DiBiase Jr. was like inclined like that. That, hey, I make apps, you know. So he made the app and everybody else was stealing money and he knew nothing about it. And here's the thing too, everybody else that was arrested in this all made plea deals. They all pleaded guilty, I would say, you know, for lesser charges or agreed to, you know, work with authorities. What I have to find out is, did any of them work out a deal with feds? They get no jail time and they ratted out Ted DiBiase Jr. and ends up they lied? That's what I got to find out. So I'm blown away. I am blown away that he was found not guilty. And I accept it. I believe it. And I sincerely apologize because I thought that guy was guilty beyond a shadow of a doubt. There was too much, it seemed, evidence against him, and somehow the jury felt otherwise. 3 weeks, 7 years this went on. So he's not guilty. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. You know who is guilty of many things? But this was kind of the funniest tweet I've seen in a very long time. Did you all see what Johnny Ace did last week? John Laurinaitis? I'm going to reveal a ridiculously stupid growing up Don Tony story. A lot of you ask me here, Patreon, hey, tell us a growing up Don Tony story that you've never told before. And I don't have a book that, hey, look, I never told this story, or I might have told this 30 years ago. Let me tell it again. Sometimes something will happen and it'll spark a memory that I had not thought about in a very, very, very long time. Hey, I'm going to share a story right now. Back in the late 80s, I worked for Finest Supermarket in Maspeth, Queens. Finest Supermarket. I worked in the deli area. A lot of you know the Night Crew story with the lettuce and all that stuff. We're not going to get into that here, but it's the same supermarket. So what happened was one of my friends, it ended up that a cashier really liked him. And the cashier was leaving him like little chocolates by his area. And he didn't know who was doing it, but apparently there was a cashier that liked him. And they ended up hooking up after, and they went out a few times. So me, I had nobody. And I was a chunky monkey at the time. And I was trying to figure out, for some weird reason, again, just think of my age, very, very young. This is 1988, something like that, 89. And what I did was I bought a card. I don't remember if it was my birthday, which is this Friday. I don't know if it was my birthday or if it was Christmas or something like that, but I bought a card because the grocery store had a section where it had like small cards, a few cards. I bought a card and I wrote, something, and I put from ? With a whole bunch of hearts. And the idea was that I was going to tell my friends, look, apparently somebody here likes me. Now, hopefully this was not a case of, what was that woman talk show? Who was not Jenny Craig. Who was that girl? There wasn't a name Jenny also. Who remembers that blonde woman from the 90s that she did a Secret Crush episode? And there was a guy, Jenny Jones, thank you, the Jenny Jones story. Anyone remember Jenny Jones? Infamous story. Oh, shit, my YouTube just crashed. Wow, is this Warner Brothers Discovery sabotaging my shows? Are they pulling a Trey Miguel on me? No, I'm not making fun of homosexuality. I'm just telling a story. Oh, my God. All right, we're good. Jenny Jones, for those that don't know this story, this TV show, back in the 90s, they did an episode called Secret Crushes. And I watched the episode when it happened, and it's basically someone who had a crush on like a worker or friend or somebody, and, the other person didn't know. And then it's revealed on the show, and then, they see if they possibly could hook up. So Jenny Jones does an episode where there's a guy, And it ends up one of his closest friends has a crush on him. And the person who has a crush on this guy is another guy. So the guy's sitting with Jenny Jones and by himself, and Jenny Jones like, are you excited? Like, are you looking forward to see who your secret crush is? He's like, yeah, I don't know who it is. Oh my God, oh my God. And all of a sudden, his friend comes out and he's got this look on his face like, what's going on here? And it ends up that his friend who was gay had a crush on him. Turned into a major fucking tragedy. The guy killed the other guy. Crazy, crazy shit. I don't like, putting people on the spot like that, whether it's heterosexual, homosexual, anything. You put someone under pressure like that, I mean, I don't think people would normally move to violence, but crazy, crazy, crazy. Look it up. It's a crazy story. But here's the thing. I tried to play off that somebody had a secret crush on me. So I wrote this card up, but you see, the thing is, and I can't do it here, but me, even to this day, when I write like a birthday card or Christmas card or anything, when I put the person's name on the envelope, I always do this. I always put a little swivel underneath, like a little design. I mean, when I write my name, I'll do this. Even when some people would, for some reason, wanted autographs from me years ago, I would write my name, and sometimes I would do this. So when I wrote my name on the envelope, I did this. And all my friends knew that I did that. So when I showed my friends, look, somebody here likes me, and I showed them all the card, and I never forget it. My friend Joey looks at me like, oh, that's nice. Everybody's looking at each other, and they start laughing. And I'm like, what's so funny? And they're like, nothing. And then sure enough, one of my friends pulls me aside. He's like, they think it's you that wrote the card. I'm like, why would I do that? And they're like, the swerve. I think they called it the swerve. And I realized, fuck, I fucked up. And they figured out that I did it. I lied. I said somebody had a crush on me, and nobody had a crush on me. I had a crush on myself. So anyway, getting to this. Sometimes you manipulate something. This is what has to do with John Laurinaitis, by the way. Sometimes you manipulate something to make it seem that you're wanted or you're loved or you're liked a lot more than what's perceived. And that's what John Laurinaitis did last week. A couple of weeks ago, we had reported on one of the shows that John Laurinaitis was going to be doing an autograph signing at Big Time Wrestling. And you know what the funny thing is? I definitely don't have it handy, but I know you guys have seen it before. I'm one of the few that has the John Laurinaitis autographed People Power photo. I still have it somewhere in this vicinity, somewhere on here. I don't know if it's worth nothing. I mean, I wasn't going to throw it away. I figured if he would have went to jail for life or maybe just decided to go postal on some people and maybe be worth something. But anyway, I'm like, why? Who cares that he's doing an autograph sign? Who wants to meet John Laurinaitis? But they announced it, Big Time Wrestling. Big Time Wrestling's a legit company and everything. So John Laurinaitis is advertised having an autograph signing. So Big Time Wrestling has their event, and they draw good. No doubt they draw decent. I don't know if they draw on the levels that was, perceived, but John Laurinaitis decides to go on social media and post this. Amazing signing and matches at Big Time Wrestling this past Saturday. It was great to meet so many people. Now, I don't have the full-blown photo right now, but you could search the net for it. But if you look at the photo of him signing, it's AI. And he had AI add a whole bunch of additional fans to make it look like that people in droves were trying to get autographs. The problem is, if you look at the photo closely, there's a guy that has two thumbs on the same hand. There's another guy, and I said this on, I think it was Wednesday. I said, I haven't seen Messiah from XPW in years. Unless this was Messiah. I said there was a guy that only had 3 fingers on his hand, and he was not doing the I love you sign. He was missing fingers. There was another guy that, you just look at it close, and AI totally butchered, some of the physical attributes. So he got busted. and everybody was making fun of him, and he took it down. Now, if you saw Wednesday's episode of Wednesday Night Dynamite, you knew yours truly couldn't resist. That was the thumbnail that I made for the show, complete with the random old man on the left with the Hulk Hogan shirt. That's supposed to be the Vatican, and that's supposed to be the whole entire country of Italy doing an autograph signing. And if you look closely, does anything look a little bit familiar in the middle? I know some of you out there will be like, wow, you're a fucking dirtbag. Listen, I don't know if she was a victim. I don't know if she was a willing participant. I don't know if she just got burned from a creep that is Vince McMahon. I don't know if she was kinky. I don't know what. So I don't know. You're innocent until proven guilty. And I don't want to say you're guilty until proven innocent. I don't know. But, you know, all I know is that John Laurinaitis worked out a deal with her. They worked out a deal with her that he's now like, this is not a criminal case where you're like, hey, you know, I dealt drugs and you know what? I'll work with the authorities and I'll help out the big dog, the big drug dealer. You know, John Laurinaitis is accused of trafficking this woman along with Vince. And she works out a deal with him. Just imagine that. You confronting your accuser and you work out a deal that will work together. Doesn't make sense to me. Because this is the court of public opinion. Janelle Grant is going to win the court of public opinion. And she'll probably end up getting what was owed to her plus interest. And then she'll be for the rest of her life doing speaking engagements and convincing everyone that she is a victim. We don't know the truth. And I'm not going to jump to speculation one way or the other like some other people have. We don't know the truth. Just like we don't know the true HBO Max numbers, despite how many times BJ Blowjob Bethel and Dave Meltzer want to tell you that. All right. AEW is not a publicly traded company. So they let this guy say what he says, and there's 1,000 websites that'll repost it. And you do that over and over and over again. You brainwash people, and you even brainwash AI to believe that your stuff is true. You know, because and I saw a super chat come in earlier, and I will address that in a minute. But the thing is with Janelle Grant, we don't know what's true and what's not true. All right, so I'm sorry, you work out a deal. It's almost like hearing Tony Khan almost bought Harvey Weinstein. I'll comment about that in a minute if some of you want me to, if you truly want me to answer that. But why would you work out a deal with someone you're accusing? For what? For what? In the end, this is going to arbitration. What did you benefit from it? So when I see that, I can't help but to make a thumbnail like this. But if you look a little bit closer, if you get, these women all look familiar. I don't know. There's something about these women that look a little familiar. And if you look to the left, there's some random Italian woman behind her. It's like, can I get in on this autograph signing too? No. Where's your glasses? Yeah, that's random. So that's my AI version of John Laurinaitis. So, yeah. See, AI is not always slop. You can have a little fun with it. As long as you don't have it replace, what you do for your work. If you start to pay... You hear about that woman who wrote a novel, and she's like a very famous author, and she put the book on sale in the United Kingdom. They sold like 1,500 copies already, and then they found out that 91% of the book was AI. And he's like, I didn't know. I gave it to a publishing company, and they're the ones that did it. You didn't read your own book and say, this is not my words. So people are stupid, man. John Laurinaitis, you're stupid too. You're stupid too. Nobody loves you. You love yourself. All right. What else did I want to... Oh, Samantha Irvin and the death threats. Not the death riders, the death threats. I'm going to be very, very quick about this. I saw a bunch of people out there reporting today that Chris Hero stepped up and told Ricochet to take the MS tweet down. The same Chris Hero that got in CM Punk's face at All In and is like, not here. Don't do this. Chris Hero's a good guy. I'm not going to throw any shade on Chris Hero. But when I read the Wrestling Newswire today saying that Chris Hero went to Ricochet and told him, take it down, I'm flabbergasted by that report. You would think that every motherfucker in that company, every person that knows Ricochet, family, friends, and your conscience would be telling you, take that down. The fact that you're reporting that one individual told Ricochet to take it down, that's not news. That's disgusting. You know, I don't care if Chris Hero, all right, somebody overheard Chris Hero tell Ricochet, I think you should take down that tweet. That's not news. That's a friend trying to help you out. That's not news. And you ain't helping anybody else out there. That out of everybody, Dustin Rhodes didn't tell him to take down the tweet. Samantha Irvin didn't tell him to take down the tweet. Mr. Ricochet, the senior, didn't tell him that. You report Chris Hero? That's it? So you're saying that no one else did? That's ridiculous. I'm not crapping on the news sources, but I'm like, do people realize how bad that looks? That you throw out one person, no one else stepped up. So here's where we get serious. Here's where we get serious for a minute. I have been talking about this for decades. I was victim of it 2 decades ago. A lot of you remember our old Facebook page, good example of that. Kev had some problems, you know, a lot of people over the years in wrestling, a lot of women especially, you know, harassed, threatened. And the one thing out of the entire internet wrestling community, especially when it comes to Twitter, of all the years of me being on social media, because I am an older guy now, in all the years of me being on social media, by far the most bizarre thing that I have ever seen is not dick pics privately. All right. If you keep your DMs open to everyone, you're just asking for trouble. All right. Unsolicited nudes, you know, it's stupid. But that's not even weird to that point. To me, the weirdest thing that I've seen on social media, especially Twitter, the last 15 plus years, is how people claim that they receive death threats. And a lot of people do that for sympathy. A lot of people do that to put attention on themselves, shift attention in a different way. And the thing that always disturbed me is when I see people, even friends of mine, who have claimed over the years that they've received death threats, you don't go to the cops, you go to Twitter. And I'm like, that's fucking insane. Somebody says somebody's threatening to out's not the right word, off my kids. Somebody's threatening to show up at my house, attack my wife, attack me. And you tweet about it. You don't go to the authorities. Anybody that has ever done that and you don't go to the authorities, you deserve it, whatever happens to you. Because you're not a pussy by calling law enforcement. If somebody threatens to hurt you or your family, you call law enforcement, period. I don't care if you're Brody King and you hate every cop in this world. You let someone threaten to use the wrong word again, off your mother, off your friends, off your kids, your pets, start sending wild death threats to your house. You know, what are you going to do? Call the wrestling mafia? You know, what are you going to do? Like, who are you going to do? What are you going to call? Ghostbusters? You got to call law enforcement. And what pisses me off even more is this stupid cycle that we have been seeing for years and years and years. And I remember getting into that cycle shortly after Hana Kimura. And it's the same cycle over and over again. People being vicious, you know, or better yet, you get, all right, lighthearted jokes, okay? Lighthearted jokes. And then the jokes get a little bit more darker. And then they get a little more darker. And then they get into threats. And then the people trying to cancel people out, and then a tragedy happens. The tragedy happens, and everybody's like, we need to do better. We need to be better. We need to be kind. You know, stop this tribalism. Stop this hate. And then everybody feels, oh, you know what? We got to be better. Let's be nice. And you're nice. And then all of a sudden, a little joke creeps in. And another joke creeps in. Then the joke gets a little bit dirtier, a little bit harder. Then you get some in the threat category. And then next thing you know, there's people trying to cancel people out. And then another tragedy happens. And we need to do better. We need to be better. We need to do this. I get angry at that shit because you don't need a tragedy to be better. You don't need a tragedy to do better. And it's about fucking time that people start calling law enforcement when you get death threats. It's interesting to watch people doing live streams on Twitch or everything else, and they claim they got death threats, and you literally watch the whole stream back and you find nothing. But yet everybody in their mother, oh, I'm thinking about you. I'm praying for you. Oh, I'm so sorry you have to go through that. And you realize that there's people that use that. You know, you remember even the Me Too movement. There were people that were abusing the Me Too movement to get sympathy on themselves. So I'm very skeptical when death threats are claimed because you see so many people that don't call law enforcement. And a lot of you know this notorious story. And I'll mention the account now. I don't give a fuck anymore. I think it's about time you start exposing people, not only people with threat that are giving threats, but people who are full of shit. A lot of you remember a long time ago, there was a Twitter account. I think it was called AEW Botches. All right. And the guy would post a lot of botches from AEW. Then all of a sudden, the guy claimed he was getting a lot of heat online for what he was doing. Then out of nowhere, he claimed that somebody was giving him death threats, threatening his kids, threatening his wife, threatening his whole family. And, you know, I saw it and I was really, really, you know, I got into it that I felt awful for this guy. And I know how to report an internet crime. I know how to report stuff like that because I had to deal with it with Facebook. Kev had to deal with it. I had to deal with it. And, you know, you do something about it. And you don't need to be a victim to report it. If you see someone else being harassed, if you see someone else being threatened, you could do it anonymously. You could do it and give your name. So when everybody in droves was coming to this guy and saying, listen, you know, that's awful, that's disgusting, no matter what side you're on, this and that. And I went on the internet, you know, whatever the site is that you report cyber crimes, and I reported it. And I said, look, you know, here's the Twitter account. This person is, you know, his wife is being threatened. His kids are being threatened. They're threatening to dox his information. I'm doing this as a concerned person online, and you file it. So I got the case number. I went on his X account, and if it's still active or even if it's online but dormant, you could look it up. And I said, listen, I went on the cybercrimes website and I reported it for you. Send me a DM and I'll give you the case number and everything. And, you know, this way you can handle this because a lot of people don't know how to handle it. And the guy blocked me. And I was like, okay, that's pretty bizarre. Long story short, the guy was full of shit. Nobody threatened to off his kids. Nobody threatened his wife. He just was trying to get the heat off of himself because he was an AEW Botches account. And that I learned my lesson. I'm like, anybody out there that claims death threats but don't go to law enforcement, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Samantha Irvin deactivated her X account. Now, a lot of people deactivate their accounts for various reasons, but one of the biggest reasons why she deactivated was death threats. And I watched social media over the last week with the Ricochet MS story. We talked about it last Monday. I was one of the few people that talked about it, and I thought it was disgusting what he said. He hates the IWC, fine, but he took it out on one woman who didn't say anything outrageously heinous for him to get that low. But here's the thing. I also follow Samantha Irvin, didn't see anything outrageous, and she deactivated her account. So now TMZ reports it and says that she legitimately got death threats. And what I found out was that Samantha Irvin posted some of these death threats. And I'm going to share a few of them on the screen right now. Now, here's where I have a problem with some of it. And I think it's about time of a change, okay? Now, I'm not going to read what's said on these screens because it's disgusting, it's terrible, and YouTube will probably flag it. But she started posting some of these death threats. And you see even the one on the far right, you go to the cops, man. Somebody getting that explicit, you don't fuck around, you go to the cops. Now, here's the thing. There are others out there as well that said shit. But the mistake that she made with a lot of them was you blur out the name. You blur out the picture. And that is something, I guess when you're the victim, you're even more afraid that if I expose that person, I might trigger them and put them over the edge. And that is totally understandable. But here's the thing. The IWC needs to stop putting these, I'm getting death threats. The IWC needs to stop. We need to do better. We need to be better. That doesn't stop assholes for doing this. The only way you stop these assholes is if you expose them and let the entire, not just wrestling world, but let the entire world see who actually did this. And you go to the cops. How do you stop an asshole like this? When they have to hire a lawyer, when they get arrested, when they get a legal letter, and their spouse, their boyfriend, girlfriend, their mother, their father, their job finds out that you're threatening to slice and dice and do all this outrageous stuff. That's how you stop these assholes. Be better, do better has done nothing to stop these assholes for years. And I'm only going to post one because it's not my place to do it. And I'm even going to be respectful enough to not post this guy's wife, because as far as I could find, his wife didn't do anything. And if I post his wife, then you're literally doing the same thing. You're taking it out on Samantha Irvin for what Ricochet said, which is wrong. Not going to take it out on the wife for what the fiance did. But I just want to show you one of the persons, okay? This is a guy that said some awful stuff to Samantha Irvin, all right? And when you dig a little bit deeper, in no time you realize that he's got another account. And look at that. He's engaged. And if anybody looks even deeper, you could find his fiance's name and profile, mother, father, and very quickly you could probably figure out where this guy works. And now you start exposing these people and like, hey, you know, how do you feel about your fiance telling a woman that this should happen or this should happen, this should happen? This is the only way you stop these motherfuckers. You have to expose them online and you have to report it to the fucking cops, because I guarantee you, this guy ends up getting a phone call, something in the mail, knock on his door, and now he's got to get a lawyer and risk possibly getting a criminal record for threatening to not saying him specifically, but anybody in particular. This is the only way you stop this shit on social media. I get angry with this. We got to do better. We got to be better. We got to do this. No, you don't need to wait for a fucking tragedy or for a threat. You got to expose these pieces of shit. You got to call law enforcement. The next person that you ever communicate with, whether it's somebody famous or not, that tells you that they're getting death threats, if they don't go to law enforcement, I'm not trying to say this to be cold, but you just look the other way. don't even feel bad for that person, because by doing nothing, that person gets even more, ballsy and realizes, I got away with it. I could go even further. I could bother someone else. I could do this. When it hits the pocketbook, when a criminal record, losing a job is the result of what they do, you see how fast they stop this shit. That's the only way you stop these assholes on social media. Do better, be my balls. That doesn't do nothing, because there's an old phrase, I know I've said it a million times over the years, but it's so fucking true. Hurt people, hurt people. And you would think for this guy, he's engaged. He's got a decent job. Like, why would you risk something like that? For what? I mean, do you live in an area in the country that you don't understand that? I had no idea this is against the law. I was just talking like a storyline. I don't really mean that. Like, where do you live? Stupidistan? Like Polakistan? Like, what? That's the only way you stop these assholes. It's the only way you stop that. I just invented a country, Polakistan. I'm from Polakistan. Hey, you want an old joke? Damn, I can't say it. I'll get my ass in trouble. No. Stereotypes. We can't go there. We can't go there. What's a safe group of people we could say that steals cars? What do we say? Oh, there's a notorious one. Oh, I want to say it. I'm going to get in trouble. I can't. No super chat will get me to say it. I don't care. What do you get when you cross a Puerto Rican and a Polak? That was an old joke from back in the day. Hey, Italians, me, Prince Spaghetti Day. And today, Prince Spaghetti Day. You know, what do you say? Oh, what does Tony stand for? To New York. Ho, 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 ho. We're all immigrants. Get it? Why do they call him Tony? To New York. What do you get when you cross a Puerto Rican and a Polak? Somebody that steals his own car. That's very, very old. Oh, what you people do to me. What you people do to me. Let me get a couple other super shout-outs, and then we'll move on to a few other things. I will tell you that we will definitely going to be wrapping this up a little earlier tonight, not too much earlier. What I started doing is very, 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 very slowly, I'm starting to put old DTKC episodes back online through Spotify, through Apple, through the normal audio means. And yesterday I put up about 30 episodes. And I know a lot of you automatically get updated, with old episodes. And I was pleasantly surprised how many people downloaded them. And I was like, holy shit, I have about 1,800 of them just sitting on the sidelines. So it's not easy. It takes about 5 minutes to upload each episode individually, 5 to 7 minutes. So putting up, 1,800 will take me months. But I started putting up some yesterday. So just a little, listen, what is John Cena? My time is now. Yeah, the time is now. If we're going to expand this shit and go a little further, we have to start, putting more out there. So, all right. Very quickly, a couple of super shout outs. We'll get into a few other topics, and then we will jet for the evening. Jim Khan, what's up, Jim Khan? You can't be the only one saying peace out on WWE this week. They were doing nothing edgy to grab me. Then I saw the stuff on Reddit. Listen, I'm not sticking up for WWE. I don't know how old you are. You don't have to super chat that. You don't even have to say it publicly. But me, my birthday is this Friday, and I'm in my now I'm in my latter part of my 50s, which is insane to think. But that's what happens when you're doing this since 1997. I'm literally doing this 30 years now. I didn't start when I was 12. You start in your 20s. Gee, do the math. You can figure out how old I am. I've lived through enough WrestleManias that in the end, we will get good stuff. Will some of it be rushed? Absolutely. We just joked on Wednesday about the Bellas. I'm like, guys, I don't mean to ruin the end of the show for you, but don't forget, the Bellas are about to return, and we saw Friday. I kind of wish that would have been 2-3 weeks from now, but they decided to do it now, and we'll see where it goes. But I think when you start figuring out Becky Lynch and AJ Lee with a pretty substantial stipulation involved with it, Dominic Mysterio and Finn Balor, now we got Brock and Oba Femi, and if we get Seth Rollins and Bron Breakker, you start the Usos and Austin Theory and Logan Paul. I know not everybody's thrilled about that, but it's sure a hell of a lot better than fucking Alpha Academy. I mean, just think the Usos, arguably the greatest tag team in this generation. New Day, some people say first, but the New Day was 3 people at some point. Usos always been a dos. So that's why I put the Usos slightly ahead of the New Day. And their last tag team run, their only defense is against Alpha Academy. I mean, just let that sink in for a minute. That's like me playing in a fantasy baseball tournament, and I look at the league like, wow, I'm kicking ass, and I realize I'm the only person in the league. Like Alpha Academy. That's the best. So, anything is an upgrade at this point. Well, when you start figuring out, some of these matches, you start breaking it down on 2 nights, it's not a bad WrestleMania. It's not. And I think we'll get enough that we'll look back on it and say it was a very good WrestleMania. We don't have to worry about ticket prices, guys. We don't have to worry about that kind of expenditure. We're not dropping that. Anybody that has that kind of excess money, seriously, good for you. Seriously, if you have that kind of coin and you want to drop it that way, awesome. Just don't run to social media a day later, a week later, and ask for sympathy. Fuck you with your sympathy. I just personally feel, for premium live event caliber, I think it's going to deliver. I really do. If you just want to think of the TKO ego for a second. TKO ego, it's not just about finance, because it's never been in doubt. I've been saying this, and I don't have no connections. This is just opinion, but I've been saying this for a good 6 months. This WrestleMania will break the financial record that was set last year. Next year, no. Next year won't happen. It's Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, their money's made already. So they're not going to get, the press release next year. They're going to get it this year. So financially, it's fine. But, amongst the fans, you want that momentum. And I'm sure ESPN absolutely wants some good momentum because, I was surprised at how many of you who DM'd me and emailed me, showed me screenshots that you also canceled your ESPN subscriptions. I will find a way online. I don't care if I find the shadiest website out there that has like 19,000 pop-ups of porn. If I find a website out there that can watch WrestleMania for free, I damn sure will. I don't even care if I don't get Corey Graves and Michael Cole and Wade Barrett. Instead, I get, Oba Build from Polakistan doing the commentary. I don't care. I'm going to try to find a way to watch it for free. I think in the end, I think it's going to be fine. I really do. It's not me being, all positive about WWE. There's a lot, to complain about, no question. But when it comes to WrestleMania, I think they'll deliver. And I think they have enough talent that the wrestlers will deliver. Does any matches smell shitty to you? I mean, even the Bellas to an extent, if they do Gauntlet, they do this, they do that. Even if they do that, you're surrounded by tremendous talent. Does any match smell shitty to you? I can't think of really anything right now. I just don't. So, I think because we're a month away now, here's where they really ramp it up. I think one thing that happened this year, Jim, and for everyone else, and I think you'll agree also, is WWE is doing WrestleMania later in April. And my God, you look at previous years, there's a lot of WrestleManias in the last 15 years that went down already. So the fact that you have these extra weeks coming out of the Elimination Chamber makes it harder. It makes it harder to keep the interest and to build storyline. But again, I think the reason why they revealed Oba versus Brock so early was to eliminate everybody thinking that it could be Brock and Seth. You know, think about that. We thought week after week, open challenge, open challenge. Who's going to accept Brock's open challenge? Open challenge. We thought that was going to go on for 3-4 weeks. And then somebody would accept, and then a week or two before Mania, they would set the match. Literally the next week, Open shows up. Like, okay, open challenge done. That was done to eliminate the idea. Just like when Bron got eliminated first in the Royal Rumble. They didn't have him come out later because they didn't want all of us throughout the whole Royal Rumble thinking, Bron's going to win this. Bron's going to win this. Bron's going to win this. Bron needs to win this. Bron's going to win this. Bron's going to win this. No, we'll have that motherfucker get attacked before the match even starts. So this way, now the whole Royal Rumble, well, Bron's not in it. You know, I mean, I picked Bron to win it. I thought Bron was going to win. So imagine if Bron would have came out number 30 or 20 and stood towards the end. The entire Royal Rumble, I would be thinking to myself, I think Bron's going to win it. I think he has a great chance. He'll be in the Final Four. Bron's going to win it. Bron's going to. These motherfuckers were like, no. We're gonna take that thought out of your brain before the match even starts. You'll be pissed the rest of the match. That's what they did. They had him attack so early, so the whole match we'd be like, oh, I guess not for Bron. So now you're thinking, all right, who instead? So I think we'll be good, Jim. I really do. And I want to thank you very much to Todd. Shout out to you, my friend. Good evening to you as well. Good evening. I'm in a pretty good frame of mind tonight. It's been okay last couple of days. You know, a little pissed that I'm going to be 1 year older officially this coming Friday. But I will be going out to dinner with the fam. My wife is getting a wisdom tooth pulled out in the morning, which means that she's probably not going to be going out to dinner with us. So I'm going to have to deal with that as well. But age is not just a number, my friend. It's just a number when you're in your teens, 20s, and 30s. When you start getting to your 40s, you think about it a little bit. And trust me, when you get to your 50s, it's punch right in the mouth. So, but we're fighting it. I don't plan on ending the shows for another couple of decades if it allows me. And financially, we could make a couple of bucks off of this, you know. But I'm doing whatever I can. I mean, I know what some of you are going to say. Oh, DT, I don't think you're doing enough. You know, I don't think you're doing enough. Yeah, I'm doing whatever I can. So I know people who were in the best physical condition and died 20 years before me, just out of nowhere. So when that happened, I remember when I used to smoke. I quit smoking in 2002. And I remember before I quit smoking, my friends used to say to me, Ant, why don't you quit smoking? I'm be like, for what? You're going to get sick later on. I'm like, you know what? With my luck, I'll quit smoking. I'll get hit by a truck. So why am I even going to, like, okay, I quit smoking and I still died at a young age. Like, what am I going to quit smoking for? And I quit smoking because of my dog, Peanut, God rest his soul. But, you know, my mindset was, you know, if I'm going to die from something. It's probably not going to be from cigarettes, so let me just enjoy it. So, VMR says he's going to be 48 in May. Happy birthday, my friend. Happy early birthday. Boris J, when Tony Khan gets his full inheritance, do I think he goes after WWE ownership again? No. And I promise you, give me 5 minutes and I will answer the Tony Khan. The Tony Khan. It sounds like a dance. The Tony Khan. Remember when Tony Khan did that? I still remember that. I'm going to answer Tony Khan in a way that I guarantee you no one else has. And I will mention it again tomorrow because it is news and it will be part of tomorrow's show. I just want to give, you know what? We could save Mr. Meltzer, Tuna Meltzer. We could save Meltzer. All right, so there's one super shout out that I will do in a moment for Mr. Meltzer. Let me answer Tony Khan for a second. The Tony Khan. For those that don't know, and I'll be very simple with this, because of court documents with a lawsuit, we found out, you know, nothing personal against WrestleNomics, but I laughed at all the wrestling websites. WrestleNomics discovered. No. The court revealed it. We all discovered it. The court was the one that put it out there. No one else. But the court revealed in the lawsuit that Tony Khan, under his corporation, I think he owns with his sister, put in a bid to buy WWE a couple of years ago. I think the bid was like $9.5 billion. It was someone, chat, could you just clarify that for me? I don't want to Meltzer guess, but was it $9.5 billion? I think it was $9.5 billion. We'll get that number in a second. But Tony Khan put in a bid, one of 4 bids. Okay, Deuce says $6.9 billion. Okay, even better, because that helps my argument even more. $6.9 billion. We'll go with that. We'll say $7 billion. Okay, $7 billion. Okay, now Dave is saying it was $9.5 billion. Park says 6.9. We'll go with $7 billion. I thought it was 9.5, but that sounds high. That does sound high. I think $7 billion is probably the accurate number. So check this out. Tony Khan put in a bid to buy Harvey Weinstein. Now, I could just end the sentence there and say nothing else. And you say to yourself, yeah, thank you very much. Okay, douche, actually, Dave was part right. Endeavor ended up paying almost $9.5 billion. But Tony Khan put in a bid of 6.9. Okay. He put in the lowest bid. Now, I'm saying this with 1,000% sincerity here. No criticism towards Tony Khan or AEW in any way, shape, or form. I'm just telling you this straight up. Okay, here's the deal. You think of Okada and WWE. You think of some other signings, Jay White, WWE. You think of some other names, and you're saying to yourself right now, DT, what are you talking about? They're not signed with WWE. Okay, here's my point. There were points where WWE did have interest in those guys. All right. Just like with Stephanie Vaquer, WWE had the mindset that if we could get somebody on the cheap, sure. Okada in WWE is better than Okada not in WWE. If they could get somebody on the low, they will do it. So it's not that Tony Khan just outbids WWE. WWE has to answer to stockholders and investors. Okay, this is not where Tony Khan is on an eBay auction. I gotta have it. I need it. Want it. Gotta have it. I think that's a hip hop song. No, you have to answer to investors. So if you turn around and you break the bank for someone, and you have to explain that. So WWE had interest in some other wrestlers, but we're not going to pay them the money that they probably deserved at the time. Because number one, there's no room. You know, despite a few straggling people a couple of years ago, oh my God, Okada and Seth Rollins at WrestleMania, that needs to happen. When 99% of the WWE universe doesn't really care that much about Okada in the United States yet. It's different now. But the thing is, oh, thank you. Kevin Walkie says, Jermaine Dupree. I knew it was, see, I don't follow a lot of contemporary hip hop. I knew it. I need it, want it, gotta have it. But here's the thing. All right. If you could get something on the cheap, you'll buy it. You know, you see an auction. You know, I really don't need this, but if I can get it for like a third of what it's worth, yeah, I'll get it. I'm not really looking for this, but oh my God, look at the bid. It's so low. Maybe I could steal it. I'm sure a lot of you have bought something simply that's not something you really needed or wanted, but if you could get it extremely low, why not? Here is why Tony Khan was never, ever, 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 ever going to buy WWE. if Tony Khan would have bought WWE at $6.9 billion, he would have had to flip it almost immediately. And believe it or not, I said this Wednesday, I still haven't gotten the answer. A lawyer is supposed to call me tomorrow and give me this answer. Here is the $1 million question right now. If WWE would have accepted that bid, was Tony Khan forced to come through? Is it like an eBay auction that if he changes his mind, he gets a strike against him? Is there a penalty? Like if WWE would have accepted Tony Khan's bid, would Tony Khan have to absolutely go through with it? Or if there's some way that it would have been out? That's what I'm trying to find out right now. And that answer is not as easy as you think. Trust me, I Googled it, I AI'd it, I did research online. There's a lot of bullshit lawyers online that don't give you a straight answer. Well, it varies with state to state, and it varies under certain things. And I'm like, listen, if somebody agrees to buy something, a corporation, publicly traded company for $7 billion, $8 billion, and they agree, does he have to go through with it? And I don't know that answer yet. But one thing is for certain, and I'm sorry if this offends anyone out there, but deep, 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 deep down inside, 100% of you out there will agree with me on this. I even think Tony Khan would agree with me on this. If the financial world would have found out that Tony Khan just purchased WWE, that stock would have went from $90 a share to $30 a share. Because every investor would look at AEW and say, what the fuck? This guy does not bleed profit. This is a guy that runs AEW more for the love of wrestling because he's got billions of excess money, doesn't have a family, doesn't have obligation, doesn't have child support, doesn't have a drug addiction, he's got billions that just sitting around. I can't take it with me. So just imagine the WWE machine and how they make money. And now you have Tony Khan come in there. It's like a bad movie. What are you going to do? I bought Harvey Weinstein. I'm going to kick everybody out that I don't like. You watch how many lawsuits for unlawful termination, accusing people of being Harvey Weinstein, everything like that. What are you going to do? Put Aaron Solo as the chief executive? Who would have run WWE? You can't turn around and say, we'll keep everybody there, because then everybody turn around, what the fuck are you talking about, Tony Khan? You've been saying that WWE's evil at Harvey Weinstein. I know before anybody says to me, I know he called him Harvey Weinstein after the bid. After the bid. Now, in hindsight, maybe when WWE laughed at the bid, maybe he's like, fucking Harvey Weinstein. Like that, maybe that's why he got so bitter. But the point is, you look at investors in WWE, look at the pandemic. The pandemic says it all. You saw WWE releasing 40, 50 wrestlers, and the stock skyrocketed. And you had geniuses out there. Observe the geniuses. Why are you firing people with record profits? Nitwits. That's why they have record profits, because they're making the most by doing the least and paying the least. And look at AEW on that side. Tony's not letting anybody go during the pandemic. If you're an investor, unless you have excess money, you just want heart emojis. If AEW is a publicly traded company and the owner is quoted that I'm not letting anybody go because it's not the right thing to do, you see how quickly people would have sold their stock. It's about the bottom line. It's about how much money is made. And you don't know nothing other than what Meltzer wants you to believe about AEW's finances. So that stock would have plummeted to an insanely low level, and WWE would have been worth next to nothing. You know what would have happened? You know what probably would have happened? You probably would have had Saudi Arabia or Vince or someone else like, hey, Tony, I know you bought it for $6.9 billion. Now it's only worth $1 billion. Sorry, all the investors, they sold out because they just didn't think you were going to. I'll give you $500,000 for it. In fact, I'll do one better. I'll give you what I gave, WCW, $2.5 million. That's what have happened. the stock would have plummeted because financial investors would have been, how is Tony Khan going to keep this machine going? You know, he doesn't have that track record with AEW. And that's just the honest answer. I don't think Tony Khan would have been able to handle WWE. He would have had to flip it or would have had to have gotten involved with other people. And I don't even know who those other people would have been. If you could get it on the cheap, sure. But, you know, if I'm WWE, I wouldn't have sold it to Tony Khan. I think when they saw it, they probably laughed. You know, if this was a bad version of Trading Places, I could picture Vince and the board of directors like, let's accept the offer. Let's just see what happens. But let's all sell our stock first, because when it plummets to 10, then we'll buy it back. This Tony Khan, it would have plummeted. And anybody that tells you otherwise is just, you know, just blindly supportive of AEW. They don't know what they're talking about. So that's my honest take on that. Now, this came in earlier, and this is going to be so easy to answer. Ronnie C., thank you very much, my friend, for your generosity. He says, Meltzer is at it again. Meltzer apparently said in his newsletter that AEW Revolution drew 140,000 pay-per-view buys on HBO Max. How does he know pay-per-view numbers on HBO Max, but not Dynamite numbers? That is fucking fascinating. And I guarantee you, Dave didn't think about that before writing that. Because people like, hold your horses. He just wrote in his newsletter that, and I checked it, he said that Revolution did around 140,000 buys on HBO Max. How do you know Revolution's numbers on Max, but you don't know Dynamite's numbers? How is that? How does Dave Meltzer know that the TV deal's 185 million for X number of years when no one on either side ever publicly revealed that? No one else has had that number. If Dave Meltzer has that kind of access, how does he not know more about the finances? Here's my honest, straight-up take on what Ronnie is asking. I think Dave looked at other pay-per-view numbers, and because Revolution was so good, he wants to make Revolution look like they're on momentum. The fact is that streaming has dramatically changed in the last year and a half. It's happened with boxing. It's happening with wrestling. It's happening in a lot of different platforms. All right. I'm one of the only people that have made this prediction that less than 5 years from now, all wrestling will be on streaming. It will no longer be on TNT and TBS. And you'll have morons out there that'll say, oh, disaster for Tony Khan. No, that's called the future. As much as people hate my guts for saying it, remember, we predicted that WrestleNomics was going to not be able to give you quarter-hour ratings once Nielsen changes over. And I didn't have any exclusives from Nielsen. It's just when you realize how things were being done, you knew it was made up. And there was no way to make it up once everything went digital. That's why your Wade Kellers, your Dave Meltzers, your WrestleNomics, and all these others, they have to remind you, oh, if it was the old system, it'd be this. If it was the old system, because they want the old system. The old system, you could lie, you could make up stuff, you could exaggerate. No one is going to fucking call you out. No one is going to question it. You put out quarter-hour numbers, and no one out there says, how come no other forms of entertainment or sports or news or anything else ever give us quarter-hour breakdowns? How come we don't ever see that this went up to this and this went up? But only in wrestling we know that this was the lead-in and this was the quarter-hour and this was hour 2 and this was hour 1. You know, they realize you can't do that no more. And as it goes to streaming, you get less and less. That's why when Raw went to Netflix, the best that Dave Meltzer had, he was going to put out that massive story that Netflix is skewing numbers. It was yours truly that called him out. Not because I don't like him. I just fucking supported him for decades. Why did I call him out on it? Because my niece works for an advertising firm in New York City. And my niece has dealt with Netflix, and my niece told me this is how this is done. And when Meltzer questioned me, I mean, I wasn't happy about it, but I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. And I told him, Dave, why are you factoring in commercials? Netflix, when they negotiate a commercial airtime, they don't factor in the commercials. That's how that's how this is made. You take the total number of hours watched, and you divide it by the length of the show, and that's how you get the total number of viewers. That's all it is. Where's it skewed? The story never came out. The story never came out to this day. You can't, there's no way to get it. So as we move more and more away, it's kind of like, remember when we were younger, you go fishing, go to a baseball game, you're sitting in motor vehicles, you got a little Watchman, you're watching TV through your little Watchman, your black and white TV. And those were fun. Those were fun. I used to have something like that on my boat. And then what happened? 15, 20 years or whatever it was. They went digital. Now those Watchmans aren't worth nothing. The only time they're good, oh, look, I connected my Nintendo to my watch. Why the fuck would I play Nintendo on a 2-inch screen? Because I can? Because I can? So Watchmans became extinct. So as technology advances, only people that could profit off of skewed information need yesteryear. The people that refuse to accept the future and always have to remind you of the past are the ones who profited the most, probably the shadiest. And now they can't do that no more. Why the fuck do I need to subscribe to somebody's Patreon to tell me what fucking NXT did on CW? Why should I go on a Patreon to see what Netflix's weekly numbers were for Raw? Why? Because you gave me an extra grid? You gave me an extra grid? It's fucking free. So you see that this is how people need to make a living. So that's what I think Dave did. If Dave has access to HBO Max pay-per-view numbers, why wouldn't they give him Dynamite numbers? I don't buy it. I don't believe it. And the sad thing about it is there's no one out there that will call him out. Warner Brothers Discovery is not going to call him out. I've always said this, and thank you very much, Ronnie, for that. I've always said this. I said this for at least the last 6 weeks. Not every week, but remember about 2 months ago, there were reports out there that Dynamite scored its third best number in like the last 3 years or whatever it was. It was some crazy number. And it was, and Warner Brothers Discovery never even tweeted about it. And that's telling when you don't tout any of the success that others are blowing up in your face. I always go to the source. And if the source doesn't find it newsworthy, why are other people blowing it up like it's a major thing? And that's always telling. Warner Brothers Discovery wants to tout everything that they have, and you don't see nothing. What does that tell you? So, unfortunately, it's not a publicly traded company. Even when the deal goes through Warner Brothers Discovery and Paramount, it's still, they own a very, very, very tiny percentage of AEW. It's so low, they don't have to report it to their investors. That's how it goes. If you buy into a business, once it goes over a certain percentage, then you have to report it to investors. And this is why we don't know to this day how much Warner Brothers Discovery owned AEW. But we know it's low enough that they don't have to tell their investors. So, all right, we're going to wrap this up in, I'd say about 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. Don't forget, we're right back here on YouTube Monday night, which means I got to be dressed. Bobby Means, what's up, Bobby? What do I think of NXT's premium live events possibly moving to YouTube? Let me put it this way. I think it's a placeholder until they ink a bigger deal. WWE doesn't have a contract with YouTube. that they have to put, they could upload and take down anything they want. Just like all of us. If any of us, somebody brought up that podcast, The Breakfast Club. I don't watch it, but a lot of you know, very successful show. A lot of people felt it deserted their viewers because they signed a deal with another streaming platform. The point is, anything that's on YouTube, is not something that you're committed to. So right now, WWE putting NXT all over YouTube, it's a placeholder, and they're making great ad revenue off of it. It's not on the level of a TV deal, obviously. It's Peacock or anything like that. But what is so good about it is when you start getting fans to watch some NXT premium live events, what happens? It now shows up on your recommended feeds. And sometimes if you fall asleep with YouTube on, sometimes all night long, fucking your YouTube is playing NXT stuff because it's just playing, it's going through the motion. So you get additional views even if people didn't request it. So right now, to me, it's a placeholder. They'll make money off of it. I don't know how much. That would be a fascinating number to learn in financials in the future. If we could find out how much money WWE makes on YouTube, that would be an interesting number to learn. And I'm sure at some point we will find out. But right now, I think it's a placeholder. The fact that they're offering the archives for free is a big deal. It is a big deal. The fact you're going to be able to watch a premium live event for free is also a big deal. But I also think it's temporary. A lot of people think they're going to work out something with Paramount or this, that. I honestly think there's a possibility that they might end up working out a deal with Netflix. Because remember, Netflix could back out after 5 years. And this is not a case where the people behind Netflix are obsessed with wrestling. If wrestling is not delivering to them to the point that they feel it's worth the billions, they could back out after 5 years. That's why you see, with all due respect, you see WrestleMania going to Saudi Arabia. The closer we get to the expiration of that deal that they had, was about 10 years, whatever it was. As we get closer to the end of it, WWE's amping it up. Now we got premium live events. Now we got the Royal Rumble. Now we got WrestleMania. I mean, they're doing this so Saudi Arabia ups a new deal, and it's even bigger than what it was before. And I've said this many times. You take away Saudi Arabia, Netflix, and ESPN. You take away Netflix, ESPN, and Saudi Arabia, and WWE is worth a fraction of what it's worth. The stock would plummet to insane lows. That just goes to show you how dependent WWE is for Netflix, ESPN, and Saudi Arabia. And that's why I believe in the future, TKO, I've been saying this for a while, TKO will sell to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia will buy shit for billions because they can. I want to buy this. Why do you want to buy that? What are we going to do with it? Because I can. I don't know who I'm impersonating, but they could buy it because they can. And, 10 bill, come on. That's like Tony Khan's, that's like Tony Khan rolling up a blunt with a $1 bill. Oh my God, he's burning money. And it's a $1 bill. Saudi Arabia has so much. Saudi Arabia could buy it in the United States if they wanted to. So once you get that dependent on three entities out there, that's when you know that there's trouble. All you need is one of those three entities to back out. Sure, ESPN, if they backed out a deal, there's another streaming. Amazon could pick up. Paramount could pick up. There's other places. So ESPN is probably the one that they have to worry about the least. But if Netflix pulls out or Saudi Arabia pulls out, Saudi Arabia is probably the worst one of them all. You're making $50 million an event. I mean, that's insane numbers just for a regular premium live event. The amount of money that was involved when you think early on and you saw the events we were getting, the greatest this, the greatest that, the cup, the best in the world, the best this. And then you look back at those match results, like they paid $50 billion for that. $50 billion. That's 50 AEW events rolled into one for that. So when you realize how much Saudi Arabia overpaid, WWE wants them to re-up. So NXT, I think, could go to Netflix. I don't know if it would go to ESPN. I don't think it's necessary. I could see Netflix just to sweeten the pot a little bit more. Just to sweeten it a little bit more. You know, I don't think they even add money to it. I think for WWE, if they can work out a deal somewhere else, they will. But I think ultimately, Netflix is probably the best opportunity. So, I wouldn't want to work with the Saudis either. But, you know, the amount of money that's involved. Listen, if network reached out to me like, hey, de Blasio, we want your shows on our network. We'll pay you. I'd be like, hey, yeah. Sorry, you know, like, I need money. I got crazy bills. Got to pay it, you know, but I won't sell my soul. I wouldn't change a thing. I keep doing exactly what I'm doing now. As long as I don't have to change nothing. Thank you for that, Bobby. Douche has a comment since I brought it up a few weeks ago, talking about YouTube. It's funny to him that bloopers, bleeps, and body slams was uploaded to YouTube today by WWE. It was in his feed. That's my first ever WWF video purchase. I still remember the Wild Samoans on the cover. I think the wooden chair hitting I think off over the head. Bloopers, bleeps, and body slams. First ever WWF video I ever bought. I think it's awesome. You know, I tell you, the person who, I don't know his name. They won't tell us his name. I think, who's the guy that had, not Evan Ginsberg, Brian Solomon knows the name. He won't tell. I've got to find out who is the guy involved with the YouTube stuff on WWE's end who's an old school fan. Whoever it is an older person, and he's uploading stuff that I think people in their 40s, 50s, and even 60s are really appreciating. You see that he's definitely not forgetting about them. So I think it's pretty cool. Give a little for everybody. So somebody mentioned to me earlier, Chuck Norris. You know, I saw how they originally covered it. He was in a hospital and he's talking to people, and next thing you know, he's done. Listen, I hope Chuck Norris is in the in memoriam next year for the Oscars. It'd be pretty funny how some people right now in that company, motherfucker, this guy died. Guy had an amazing career. Realistically, after Walker, Texas Ranger, and I think it was the Total Gym. I actually bought that son of a bitch in the late 90s. It was either that or, oh God, I don't remember the workout system with the bands. Anybody remember that? Not Cybergenics. I mean, I took Cybergenics too. Cybergenics was awesome. I was convinced those were steroids, but Cybergenics were nutritional tablets. Those were crazy. But I don't remember what was the name of the gym with the bands? I bought that too. I actually had it up until around 2010. Bowflex. Kappa, thank you. Bowflex. I bought the Total Gym in the late 90s. There was an infomercial late at night. I think it was Chuck Norris, and it might have been Christy Brinkley also. And you see Chuck Norris with these funny shorts and the big white socks, and they're working out. I'm like, wow, this thing actually looks pretty cool. And I bought it online, and I put it in. I think I might have used it maybe 2 weeks, and it just sat in my living room. It was too big to like put it anywhere. It just sat and sat and sat. And I honestly think I just threw it away. I think I took it apart, and I was like, what am I going to do with all of this? And it wasn't something I was going to put on eBay either. But listen, as far as Chuck Norris goes in his acting, my father is a triple degree black belt. I mean, he hasn't done karate in probably 2 decades. He physically can't. My father's triple degree black belt. My father performed in a karate tournament on ABC Wide World of Sports in 1977. You actually see. I got to get the VHS tape from my dad so I could show you all. And I guarantee some people out there don't believe, but they didn't believe me about the Gotti stuff until it popped up on Netflix. And then people like, holy shit, de Blasio, you're on Netflix. I'm like, what? And I saw it. My father's a triple degree black belt. Growing up, my father, it was about Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris. Return of the Dragon, my father was obsessed in watching. Then as I got a little bit older as a preteen, I got into Bruce Lee, Enter the Dragon. My friend had nunchucks and he'd do all his things. And I'm like, I can't do that. My friend had one of those butterfly knives and he'd go like this with the fucking knife. I thought Chuck Norris was so badass, especially when he performed before he had the mustache. Chuck Norris was badass, man. I actually liked Walker, Texas Ranger. I actually thought he did good. After Walker, Texas Ranger, I really didn't care much about Chuck Norris anymore. It's a shame that a lot of recent politics divided like people with him. But I think at the end of the day, and I say this unbiased, I think Chuck Norris just loved his country. And I think he just felt that the country was going in wrong directions. You know, no matter which side you're on, you know, people will have good arguments, you know, why it's good or why it's bad or vice versa. I listen, he lived a long life. Rest in peace. And growing up, Chuck Norris was a very big part of my household. Missing in action. Chuck, I will tell you this. If anybody that's older like me, you'll know what I'm talking about. For those that are younger out there, in the early to mid 80s, and I think there's no denying this. I think early in the mid 80s, the two guys that were probably featured more, there was more buzz about them in the fighting world, so to speak, and that was Charles Bronson and Chuck Norris. Those two guys in the early 80s, maybe by 83, 84, those two guys were probably just more featured than anyone else in that kind of the world. Unfortunately, Bruce Lee died, you know, way too young. But Chuck Norris and Charles Bronson, everywhere. You had the Death Wish stuff. And you know, some of the Chuck Norris's films, like Missing in Action and others, they were not very good. They were badass fighting and everything, and he was beating up the bad guys, but, you know, still wasn't very good. So, Tristan wants to know my reaction when Steve Austin turned heel and shook Vince's hand. In hindsight, they shouldn't have turned Steve Austin heel. Steve Austin, it was very uncomfortable watching him and Triple H beat up Lita. Strange. That's a segment I will never watch again. If anybody don't know what I'm talking about, maybe if I watch it again, I might be like, oh, it's not as bad as I thought it was. Back then, they were trying to get Steve Austin even more over as a heel, and he beat the shit out of Lita one night. I think it was chair shots, too. And it was just so, like, I was uncomfortable. And I just never liked Steve Austin as a heel. You know, Stunning Steve Austin was great. And, you know, when he was a heel, the only time I really enjoyed Steve Austin as a heel is when he was having the interaction with Kurt Angle. When he was doing the early days of What in 2001, I think it was. When he was doing the What stuff and Kurt Angle, you remember the cowboy hat and Yippee-Ki-Yay and all that. That's the only time I really enjoyed Steve Austin as a heel because there was so much comedy attached to it. One of my favorite moments of all time on Raw is when Steve Austin said, the next person that opens that door, and then they opened the door and Rob Van Dam is there. And everybody went nuts. So, all right. We're going to wrap it up in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Time flies when you're having fun. Yeah, I got some prep to do for tomorrow. Got some work to do. Plus, I want to put some more old shows up tonight. Definitely want to keep that momentum going. So we'll stop bringing this home. Roddy says, as talented as many of the women in WWE are, he doesn't know one that stands out as a great promo. Do I agree? And if so, do I see it eventually becoming a bigger problem with WWE? Believe it or not, I think the people that I like are good enough. Liv Morgan's laugh, that nasal laugh, kind of gets a little bit annoying with me when she does that forced laugh. Charlotte Flair, I think, is okay on the mic. Becky Lynch is good when she's not unhinged. You know, when she starts like hesitating and trying to say like 9 sentences without a period because she doesn't want to pause so the fans could go, what? I think there's decent promo cutters. I don't think, just like on the men's side, I don't think the women really need to have that really, really over-the-top promo cutter, because I think it'll kind of embarrass some others. I think Charlotte cuts an awesome promo. I think Nia Jax, is just annoying enough where she does her job. I just don't think, as far as women go, I don't think you need that kind of promo. I mean, if you look at fucking NXT, LFG, Kendall Gray. Some people watch her promo like, that's someone who could talk. There are women who could talk. No question. I think Chelsea Green cuts a fun promo. I just feel that you don't need that intensity. And it's not a negative thing either. So, Deok, thank you for the super shout out as we start rounding this up. He says, do I think that WrestleMania will still happen in Saudi Arabia next year, considering what's going on right now with Iran? Yes. I don't say this to be snide, but even somebody who is brain dead as a vegetable in a hospital right now could tell you that there's some concern about next year. All right. When there's a war going on, everything becomes riskier. It is too freaking early. We're over a year away. There is other boxing events, sports events, concerts, different, competitions that are going to be happening before WrestleMania. It's definitely something to keep your eye on. Anybody that's reporting that as news, it's common sense. It's common sense. If there's a war going on right now and it's involving multiple countries, and you see how some targets are being, soft targets, and some areas are being, targeted, yeah, there is concern. There's no question about it. But it is way too soon. It could be so different a month from now. I mean, things could be entirely different a month from now. I will say this. At least it's Iran versus everybody else for the most part. You hear little rumblings that this country is kind of helping this country, but, we have so many countries aligned in fighting with Iran that you don't have to worry about a lot of the neighbors. No one's going to turn heel. No one's going to turn heel on each other, I don't think. I think it's way too soon. It's definitely something to look at. But, listen, I say this with your, intentions more than anything else. Do not pay attention to news sites that says WrestleMania 43 is in jeopardy. When fucking CNN and all these other places are not talking about events that are going to happen a year and a half from now or a year from now, those are wrestling news sites that are just trying to get you to click on an article. We all know it's of concern, but it is way too early to say something like that. So that's just the God honest truth. So thank you for that. Dave asked, did I see the joke that Trump made to the Japanese prime minister? I'm not going to lie to you. I try to avoid politics as much as I can. I'm not thrilled about our government on either side. I'm not thrilled about our local government. I heard that district attorney Mueller died, and right away, Trump is glad he's dead. Listen, I remember what that guy tried to do to Trump. So, I mean, you understand why somebody would be kind of happy that someone's dead, but as president, sometimes you got to keep your mouth shut, man. I just stay away from that stuff. Like the jokes, it's not helping. It's not funny. And, if you are so convinced that you could put the country in a good direction, why do unnecessary things like that? That's just my honest opinion. It's for what? So radical people can laugh at the joke. I'm not into it, man. I'm not into it. Sometimes, even with some people that you don't like, sometimes you got to show a little empathy, man. Sometimes you got to just be the bigger person. And if someone says to me, well, Trump's not like that. All right, fine. But, then don't be surprised if a lot of people that support him don't like him, or not happy. I don't support anybody right now. I'm not thrilled, period. So, WrestleMess with a run-in. WrestleMess, thank you for your generosity, my friend. WrestleMess says he could see Lesnar winning by DQ when Oba doesn't listen to the ref, beats and leaves Brock a bloody mess and unconscious in the ring. Oba looks like a monster destroying Lesnar, and Lesnar don't lose. I don't see Oba becoming unhinged on one side. I could see the possibility where these two guys just start brawling outside the ring, and the ref tries to get him back in the ring, and they just start throwing chairs at each other and just having a wild brawl, and referee just throws it out, fans start booing, and then they amp up the violence even more, and then the fans will be like, okay, all right, I'm into it. Like, I just don't see Oba snapping to the point where Brock is a bloody mess laid out. I just don't think that's needed. Listen, the reports that Trump too, the fact that the reports that Brock doesn't want to lose until he retires is ridiculous. Brock shows up, does his job, gets paid. He's like, what do you want me to do? Of course, if there's something he really doesn't like, I'm not doing it. But the idea that him and Paul Heyman, listen, should Brock lose before he retires? That's up for debate. It's up for discussion. It depends on who he's facing. But to turn around and say Paul Heyman, Paul Heyman's not going to go on social media and say, you're a liar. I never said that. He's not going to do that. They'll just laugh it off as bullshit. I don't think Oba needs to get unhinged where he can't control himself. If there's going to be a wild brawl, it'll be on both sides. And I can see the referee throwing it out. And do not be surprised if the referee throws it out. When we get closer, I'll do predictions. But I will say this right now, would not be surprised if it ends up as a no contest. And guess what? If it's a no contest, that means it's going to continue. And maybe that's the way to go. The thing is, though, is Brock is going to be on TV for 5 straight weeks. You're burning a lot of Brock appearances early. This isn't a case where Brock suddenly decides, I want to work a lot more dates in 2026. I think, after WrestleMania, you might see a little Brock and then no Brock for a while. So it really comes down to what happens with Oba Femi. You might even see a fucking sign of respect after the match is over. I don't know. I think we have to wait 3 or 4 weeks. We got to see the pull apart. We got to see the holy shit, this is awesome. You're gonna get that between those two. I just hope we don't get this with Adam Pearce. I said this about Rollins if Braun returns. I said it about Punk and Reigns, and I'll say it even with Oba and Brock Lesnar. I don't want to see Adam Pearce come out for any of those 3 and turn around and say, you two are not allowed to touch each other until WrestleMania. If any of you touch each other, you will be suspended and your WrestleMania match will be off. Because they could very well do that to Punk and Reigns. You're like, son of a bitch. And now they can't get physical until WrestleMania. They could do that with Oba and Brock. If Bron Breakker returns and they announce the match, they could do that too. We're not going to jeopardize WrestleMania. No touch. No touch. It's kind of like going to an antique gallery. It's kind of like Nikki Bella. You can look, but you can't touch. All right. Chaos says Brock will not lose at WrestleMania. Bookmark it. Yeah, I think we could end up with just the count out. No contest. That's possible. I want to see what happens in the next couple of weeks. I may end up coming out and saying Brock will absolutely win. I think that could very well happen. I think it's just way too early. Let's see how it plays out on TV. There's, because remember too, Brock, you would think to yourself, why is Brock needed for 5 straight weeks if he's going to fight Oba? You probably only need 2, maybe 3 appearances at the most. Contract signing, go home Raw, maybe 1 other appearance. What are you going to do for 5 straight weeks? That's the thing. What do you do 5 straight weeks? I mean, we're going to get probably a pull apart, probably going to get a contract signing, go home Raw, anything goes. That's still 2 extra weeks. Does Brock have a warm-up match? See, maybe he has a warm-up match prior to WrestleMania. My client wants a warm-up match. Who will come out here? Please let it be Akira Tozawa. Please let it be Akira Tozawa. Please let it be Akira Tozawa. No, I'm kidding. Akira Tozawa, I like the guy. I mean, he must be thanking his lucky stars that he's in the company for that long. Good for him, man. Good for him. All right. Du says, not lose is different from winning. Good point. Very good point. Not lose is different from winning. Brian showing a little love to Brock, one of the best sellers of the last 20 years. You see how cool that was even on Monday when Brock told Oba, put your foot on me? There's wrestlers back in the day that would punch you in the mouth if you fucking posed and put your foot on them to like a cocky pin or something like that. Some wrestlers back in the day, you did that, you got punched in the mouth in the back. That just shows you. That's why the reports for the last couple of weeks that Brock refuses to work Oba, I read them and I'm like, I don't know where that came from. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's just, I think it was their mindset that Brock would never work somebody brand new like that. There was no relevance to that whatsoever. I think Brock saw this guy. He's the future. You could see he's getting like Goldberg chant, like chants and all that. And the fucking guy is massive in the ring. And was a football guy as well. I think Brock looks at him and he's like, are you kidding me? Of course I want to work with that guy. You would think that's the perfect guy Brock would love to work. I think Brock likes the idea that someone could hang with him. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want someone to sit there, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I can't believe I'm going to work you. Oh my God, it's an honor. It's a respect. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I'll do whatever you want me to do, Brock. Oh my God, oh my God. I think Brock wants someone on the opposite side of the ring like, motherfucker, bring it, man. I'm going to give it. You better bring it. You better fucking give it back to me 10 times more. Not shoot and not obviously become careless. But I think Brock, that when he spends his time now, he wants to work with someone that can fucking go, man. That's a good thing, man. That's why even like I was joking on Patreon Thursday, like when it comes to me with like going on other shows and everything, I love debating. I love having discussions. I miss it. Of course I miss it. Kev is not here. But I can't force a conversation when no one out there wants to debate me or discuss things with me. If someone challenges me on something, if it's a legitimate challenge or it's a legitimate reason why they disagree, fine. I will respectfully discuss that. That's why even when I said about the Meltzer thing earlier with ratings with Netflix, I didn't sit there and like, ooh, I'm going to make him look stupid. No, I was like, you know what? The guy is, at one point was extremely legit. Not everything was perfect, but that's a guy who knows his shit. I think it would be pretty interesting to tell him, the facts and what I know And what I was hoping out of it was maybe he would learn something that he didn't know before. And that's the thing I think it's Meltzer's biggest problem in 2026. Guy will never, ever turn around and admit to someone that he didn't know about something, and you're never too old to gain knowledge. You're never too old to learn something. If somebody contradicts what you say, he considers it a threat. Instead of just saying, you know what? Thank you. Thank you for, enlightening me about this. I didn't know. His 3 most feared words is, I didn't know. And it's glaringly obvious. Anybody who contests him is a threat. And that's awful. All right. Who's got the last question? Brock getting 7 figures for this job, he generates interest. He's one of those people that could be the deciding factor if somebody goes to something or doesn't. He is a main eventer. We may not like him personally. We may feel that, he wasn't the greatest father and husband in recent years. Some people got really angry when he was champion and never had title defenses. And we always joked on the shows that wasn't his fault. That was WWE booking. The guy doesn't just wing it. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't just go through the motions. You feel, no matter what, that he puts the effort in there. Royal Rumble was awful. The way he got eliminated during the Jey Uso entrance was ridiculous. It was almost like Saudi Arabia don't care. Like, just eliminate me. I think the Crown Prince was probably discussing like some big business or something else. I don't think anybody had an emergency meeting like Coach, emergency podcast. I don't think Saudi Arabia had an emergency Skype or Zoom. I should say Zoom with WWE. What the hell was that with Brock? It's one of the biggest attractions on this show. He gets eliminated during the Jey Uso entrance. What is up with that? How are you going to make that up for us? I don't think they give a shit. Brock is one of the biggest names in that company. And the guy could still go. You take advantage of that. You use it. You don't just let him get older and do nothing. So, next big signing for WWE, no idea. Too easy. I just noticed it's too easy. Next biggest signing. A lot of people think Chris Statlander's on her way out. I'm not so sure. I don't know if Chris Statlander wants that WWE grind. Would I call it a major signing? I wouldn't put it like really up there, but it would be a good signing. But I don't know. I don't think there's any major names on the horizon. Somebody making a return, maybe. But no, I don't think there's any names that just stick out to me and it's like major headlines. I just don't see it. All right. Statlander would be good for WWE. Absolutely. I just don't know. I mean, sometimes you see some people out there and, you just don't know if they, that WWE grind is not easy. And that's not cut out for everybody. I'm not saying that Chris Statlander can't handle it, but I don't know if she wants that. The balance of working some indies, working some AEW events, not being the focal point, but still getting to have some work, that might be good enough for her. There's some people that love working AEW because the balance of their personal life and work is much easier and a lot less stressful than the WWE grind. Not everybody wants that. So, we'll finish up with Michael Gonzalez asking me, what iconic moment? What was the wording they used last year? Something moment, like the iconic moment are they going to do? Last year it was Bret Hart, Steve Austin, WrestleMania 13. What match do they do this year? I almost feel like maybe you do Hogan Andre. listen, you're not going to have anybody there cutting any speeches or anything like that. Foley off the cell. Foley does not want to do anything with WWE right now. Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Hell in a Cell is a good one. I kind of feel you got to stick to WrestleMania for now. Do you do WrestleMania 1? I wouldn't do that because so many people are deceased now. I mean, Mr. T's still alive, right? Did Mr. T still alive? Yeah, he is. Like, he'd be the only one to accept the speech. No. I'd like to thank my mama. And I'd also like to thank Mom. You know, I think Hogan Rock would be awesome, but I don't know if Rock is going to be there accepting it. So Steamboat Savage is another guy. Now, you want to know something? You got to go with a much bigger match first. I think if you're going to do Steamboat Savage, you have to do Hogan Andre first. I'll go with Hogan Andre. Yeah, I'll go with that. Even though it's probably not going to be, but just the idea of them doing these moments, I think you got to stick to WrestleMania for now. And I think you also have to choose a moment. And I think Vegas might be the safest place where they could celebrate Hogan Andre. And I think that there's enough love for Andre that I think fans would be fine with it. So, all right. And one more, as far as the Hall of Fame in Vegas. I don't think it's a good idea. Number one, I can only imagine how much you would have to pay to get in. You know what it is? Vegas is a tourist area, and it's nowhere near what it was even in recent years, because hotels are more money, bottled waters at $13. Like, it's not I could see if WWE did a Hall of Fame building in Florida, somewhere, you know, where it's more of like local tourism, not breaking the bank, you know, cost of living is a lot cheaper there, you know, decent weather. I could see it happening in Florida. Vegas, I think it would just be wildly expensive, and I don't think there'd be enough WWE fans that would go. You know, it's like, how many people go to Vegas, you know, and would go because the WWE Hall of Fame is there or something like that? You know, like, if you're going to Vegas, you're probably going to gamble. You're going maybe for a major sporting event. I just don't see many casual wrestling fans, but I could see, like, Florida. You go to Universal Studios, you go to Disney, and you're a wrestling fan. Oh, no, let's go stop by the Hall of Fame. Hogan Store in Florida, believe it or not, I've mentioned this before. That was one of the places we were going to go during our honeymoon. We went to Disney, and when I was still doing shows for Blue Wire, a lot of you don't notice, but the owner of Blue Wire invited me to Universal Studios, was going to give me like this VIP pass that's like almost $1,000 or whatever. Like, me and my wife go on every ride before everyone else, get all this VIP treatment. And we just didn't want to go to Universal Studios, so I passed it up. But one of the things me and my wife was going to do is go to Hogan's store. We went to NXT. We only stood for the first half of it. Tony D'Angelo, that dick. But we stood for the first half of it. That was the night that Solo Sikoa came back, won the NXT North American Championship, and then had to surrender it because he was on SmackDown. He was on the main roster. That was the night on our honeymoon, so that was pretty cool. So I think Florida would be a good destination. Plus, it'd be cheaper. For WWE, it'd be cheaper to keep it there, but we'll see what happens. So, all right, my friends, we ended up going overtime. I still got a shitload to do to prepare for tomorrow. So I'm going to get this episode online. I'm going to finish my taxes. That is a nightmare. You don't even want to know. I'll tell some of you next week what's going on there. Crazy nightmare. But tomorrow night, again, if you are interested, this is the early banner. I mean, obviously, if Bron Breakker does make his return, We'll have to update this with an accurate photo, but I got to put some type of thumbnail for tomorrow. I truly believe this is going to happen. I think Bron Breakker is going to return, be one of the masked guys, lay out Seth Rollins. We're going to find out his injury was much less severe, and the match is made for WrestleMania. So we'll see. We'll see if it happens as early as tomorrow. But, oh, by the way, oh, shit, I got to leave you with this. This is worth it. I put up the newest history episode yesterday, and I was going through my old hard drive trying to find a good thumbnail for something that happened this week in wrestling history. And I found this. If any of you out there, listen, God rest Vader's soul. He's deceased now for several years. But it was this week in wrestling history, 10 years ago, almost to the day, that Vader went on social media and apologized to the world because his girlfriend hacked his computer and posted a penis picture of Vader. The funny thing is, when I saw that picture, when it happened, I was like, Vader's got a much smaller belly than I thought that he did. But it was it basically for those, that's why my banner is where it is. Apparently Vader was laying in a hotel room naked and decided he was going to take a picture of himself and send it to his ex-girlfriend. Unless he was trying out for stand-up comedy, I don't know why you would do that, because if that was me sending that picture, especially when we're talking about size and girth, the person on the other side of the photo would have laughed their ass off. There is uncensored versions of this photo if you look, pardon my French, hard enough. But yeah, it was this week, 10 years ago, that Vader, somebody, his ex-girlfriend, posted a picture of him laying in bed, taking a picture of his pee-pee. And yeah, we got... Plus, look at his shoes. Look at his shoes. Those aren't even slippers. I don't know what those are. I laughed at the shoes and the socks. Yeah, that's Vader. You know, I give him credit. He owned up to it. We had a good laugh at that time. You know, I talked to Vader a few times when he worked for USA Pro Wrestling. Very, very nice man. When Kevin and I joked at that time, you know, we didn't get any shit back. Much different than, Titus O'Neil. Vader gave us a much different response than Titus O'Neil. A lot of people to this day don't know the Titus O'Neil story. But Titus O'Neil sent a picture of his pee-pee to someone, and he accidentally uploaded it to Twitter and then took it down about 15 seconds later. By then, sorry, it's too late. And what we did, I still have the photo. Some of you have seen it and you're like, what the fuck? What Kevin and I did was we took the photo, and what we did for the outline of his pee-pee, do you remember when Samoa Joe was in TNA and he had the tattoo on his face? We actually took Samoa Joe's head with the tattoo and we covered Titus O'Neil's entire penis with little Samoa Joe heads. By the way, look, it's still over here. Look, Samoa Joe, TNA Samoa Joe, bashing brawlers. I put a bunch of Samoa Joe heads. We outlined his penis. And it was perfectly done because it looks like a penis shape, but it's all Samoa Joe's head. And Titus O'Neil blocked me. I'm still blocked to this day. And I think he told us to go fuck ourselves also. He was not happy. Hey, news is news. I in hindsight, should I have posted it? Yeah. Yeah, you fucked up. No, in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have. But we had some fun with it. We put a whole bunch of Samoa Joe heads all over it. So maybe I'll show you the picture next week. If I can find it quickly. It's probably on my X account still. If you go on my X at Don Tony D, type in Titus O'Neil. Because probably the only two times I ever tweeted about him is when he fell under the ring and probably that photo. So it might still be on my X account. Can't take it down. It's the shape of a penis. There's a hand holding something, but all you see is Samoa Joe's head like 30 times. Like you don't see any nudity. So X didn't find, or Twitter didn't find it offensive. So, yeah, when we're talking about Titus O'Neil's penis and Vader's penis, you know it's time to go. So, again, I hope you can all join me tomorrow night on YouTube. During this week, I will continue to work on Discord to see if there's an easy way to get the audio there as well. My apologies for everyone that goes on Discord tomorrow. Like I said, I'll have the chat room open, so I will see everybody's chat, and we'll definitely answer some questions too, relative to the story, to the episode, of course. And we'll see what happens. But I hope you could join me. Let's see where it goes. Take a little time to build it up, obviously, but we're back. We're back. We're back on YouTube, the top 10. So, everyone, be well, much love, and catch you all in the next one. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one, everybody.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.
You know what I'll do? I know you could still hear me. I'm going to go on my X account really quick. Let's see if that photo's still there. If it's not there, my apologies for the extra time, but let's see if it's there. I don't know if it's there. Maybe I did take it down after all these years, but let's see. Is it there? Is it there? Is it there? Oh, I forgot to put my name. Duh. Hold on. I'm sorry. I should not be doing this on YouTube because I know you see all the blank screen, but if it's there, I will tell you right now. Let me just put my account in here. If it's not there, I will definitely show you all next week. This will tell me right now. Is it there? No, it's not. Shit. I'm pissed. Yeah, it's not there. I'm sorry, guys. I tried. I have it in my other hard drive, so I'll show you all next week. I'll show you next week. I promise. So take care, everybody. Be well.